Kismet. Today I'm going to walk you through how I took the design of Beast Boy and turned it into my own design for a Beast Babe. This costume was my first time diving back into cosplay in a very, very long time. I was super nervous about how it was going to turn out because immediately I knew that I was gonna run into some issues. But now that it's done, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. There's definitely some issues within the costume, which we'll talk about when we get there. But this video is going to be a long one, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Patterning. This is always the step in any sort of garment fabrication that I hate. I'm not very good at it. I've never learned to do it properly. I kind of just fly by the seat of my pants every single time that I do it. For this costume, I wanted to try a technique, if you could call it that I have used before for superhero suits. Essentially, you take your pattern paper, you lay down on it, and you have someone trace your outline. Now, the problem with this method is it does not account for the girth which one has. I ended up using this as more of just a reference of like where the small of my waist was, where my shoulders were, where my armpits were, and then took my measurements, made a center line, and based it around that. So overall, I would not recommend this method unless you have issues with understanding the proportions of your body. Things like shoulder to bust, bust to waist, waist to hips, that kind of thing. That is a scenario where I could maybe see this method being useful. But either way, I used that center line that I created to mark out my proper measurements, accounting for my girth, and then created my base pattern off of that, making sure to fold it in half so that I had two perfectly equal sides. But more fun yet, this ended up even still being a little bit incorrect for my measurements. Now I did add 2 inches into this to make sure that I had, room to get in and out of it, room to breathe. But over the years, I have found, for me at least, that patterning is kind of just guesswork. Each time I do it, I feel like I learn a little bit more, and yet every single time I do it, there is some mistake within it. I think a better method for this would have been to get a t-shirt that I know fits me fairly well and use that as sort of a base. I transferred my pattern onto a bedsheet that I got from a thrift store to make a mock-up. But immediately this mock-up needed a lot done to it. It was very flat in the front. The shoulders had not nearly enough room in them. So I just used a Sharpie directly on my fabric to kind of mark where I wanted some, are these considered princess seams? I'm gonna call them princess seams, but I don't know if that's correct. Feel free to let me know what these are called, if they're called something else. I hoped that it would help the garment fit me better and kind of hug my curves a little bit more, as well as create some interesting style lines. Some visual interest, if you will. It worked. My sort of not princess seam actually worked. I think it might be a little low, but I think it'll be okay because again, the front zipper is gonna kind of stay low. So worst comes to worst, I just kind of take it in a little bit and it becomes a little tight. Even though there's a zipper in the front, I found I am going to have to put a zipper in the back because the waist point, it's too small to get around my ass. So I am gonna have to put not only a front zipper, but a back zipper into this thing, which is kind of annoying, but what are you gonna do? I did try a side zipper with my first mock-up. I get why people say they hate side zippers. I get it. The only other thing I'm gonna do between the mock-up and the final version is I think I'm gonna add another inch either to the shoulders or down at the crotch seam because it's just a little short for me. I'm on the taller side, so I need everything to be a little bit longer. But now that the mock-up is done, my fabric came. So for the base, I'm going to be using this gorgeous red neoprene. If you've never touched neoprene before, it's like scuba material. It's got this really nice thickness. It's kind of squishy almost. And this is a stretch neoprene. So one way it doesn't stretch a ton, but the other way, yes. I got this from Fabric Wholesale Direct. So this is gonna be the base of the costume. And then for all of the white details, I'm using a dotted vinyl. You probably won't be able to tell on camera, but it has tons of dots in it. Think like when you sit in a car that has leather seats and the bottom of the seat is like perforated with tons of little dots. That's what this is. It says that it's stretch vinyl. Honestly, that is not a lot of stretch to work with. Even on the bias, it's just, there's not a lot of stretch to work with here. So one of my big worries about working with these two together is that the neoprene is pretty stretchy and this is not, which means this, I'm thinking I'm just gonna top stitch onto the red, and that means wherever I top stitch this, it's gonna lose stretch. So I might have to do some trial and error with that, but I think in the end, it'll work out okay. I'm sure there's a more proper way to do it and to figure it out, but I am not properly trained. So those are my two fabrics. The only other things that I've yet to test are the boot cover thigh high and the glove. The glove is fingerless, so I don't think that this should be much of a problem. And the shoe cover is just like a tube with some angles. So I got 2 whole yards of that neoprene, so I think I can afford a couple of mistakes here and there. This is always the point in a project where I start to get really nervous because everything is gonna start coming together and you're about to figure out if all of your work was for nothing or if it's gonna look cool. So here's hoping it looks cool. So I set out marking my patterns onto my red neoprene and cut them out, praying and hoping that I wouldn't mess it up very much. Okay, this freaking front zipper. This caused me a lot of problems. I will talk about this later. This was in one way really easy and in another way kind of a nightmare. But hey, it zips. So first fitting, you can see there is a lot that needs to change, but hey, it fits on my body and I only needed the front zipper. Yeah! I still don't know how to use this camera, y'all. Okay, so it has been a couple of weeks, I think 3 weeks since I've worked on this project. So the plan is I am going to finish up this dang bodysuit base. I'm gonna take it all in, do my fittings, make it fit really nicely. That's all I want to achieve today. Perhaps tomorrow I will cut out the arms, arm gloves. I almost said arm boots because I also have to cut out the boots. I want to get all the stuff with the red fabric done because that will feel like a milestone to me. So let's get to work. Okay, really quickly, I wanted to talk about how I am taking this in. So you saw the pins that I had. What I did is I marked it on the inside of the garment where those pins came together. Same with right here. So you can see these 2 spots here. You can see they're very, very different. I can tell kind of where they're supposed to be, so I know where I want to put them, but basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure both of these distances. So that's about 2 inches, and that's about 3 inches. So I'm gonna average it out to 2.5 inches, taking in at this point. I'm gonna kind of mark like the average where those need to go, and I wanna make sure that it's even on either side. And if you're wondering how I'm making sure that that's even, I'm not, I'm guessing. So half of 2.5 is 1.25. So I'm gonna make 1.25 my center mark, and then I'm gonna mark here, and then I'm gonna mark here. I'm gonna scratch out my other markings. By the way, this pen is a heat disappearing pen. So when I iron this or if I apply any heat, this will disappear, hopefully. So here are my new marks. If I was smart, what I would do is I would pin this together and try it on while it's pinned, but I'm not, so I'm not going to. I honestly am at a point in this project where I kind of just, I want to get going, I want to move it along, so that's that. I'm going to do the same thing at the hips where I took it in. You can see my 2 points are right here, and then I also have marked where I'm going to be taking in the armpit a little bit. Yeah. I have to say, I'm not terribly confident in my sewing skills in general, so this has been a huge win. Except, I don't really know what to do about that. Okay, so looking at the design again, I think what I want to try to tackle this weekend is the white on both the leg tubes and arm tubes. And I think I want to add more white details to the arms, but for now, I'm totally fine with just the white band on top. Same with the legs, because I'm kind of in a testing phase. So I think the way I'm going to pattern these is I'm going to put one on, wrap tape around the area, and then draw onto the tape, and then transfer that pattern to the vinyl, cut out the vinyl, so on and so forth. Okay, ready? Break. So the reason that I put on the boot and then did my tape pattern, as opposed to doing it on my paper pattern or the boot while it was not being worn, is that the neoprene has stretch, right? And the vinyl does not have nearly as much stretch. So I wanted to make sure that whatever pattern I was making fit while the boot was stretched over my leg. Okay, these shapes, these little lightning bolt shapes, hurt my brain so much. I don't know what it is, but something about these, I just can't figure out a way that they look good. I just feel like no matter what I do, they end up looking kind of funky, kind of bad, kind of wrong. But in the end, I did end up with something that I felt was acceptable. Fun fact about this white vinyl, it had straight up dirty footprints on the back of it. You might be able to see a little bit of the dirt in these clips, but there were straight up footprints on the back of this vinyl. I've never had this problem before. I got all of this fabric from Fashion Wholesale Direct, who I have ordered from before and have not had this problem. So I just kind of avoided the dirtiest areas, and then after cutting out my pieces, I just scrubbed them a little bit with some soap and water on a washcloth. The process of top stitching all of these pieces on was tedious to say the least. I ended up not adding feet to the bottom of these because I knew it would be a lot of work, and I knew you were not going to see my feet when I wore this costume. It is once again the weekend. We're back at it, and this time I'm gonna finish up this dang bodysuit. I'm terrified of messing it up because I know that I'm going to, but you know what? I have a ton of this white vinyl fabric. If I mess it up, I can recut pieces and try again. It's not a big deal. Relax. But I do think it's gonna take me all weekend to do this, honestly, because there are so many pieces. Also, I gave myself a haircut recently. My hair is in pigtails today because I like the way that my hair looks in pigtails, okay? No other reason. Oh, also, you can see back here, meet Gerard. Jake gave him to me for Valentine's Day. Let's get to it. All right, looking at the design, this is the one piece that I have done. I got my tape. Let's do it. Okay, so this line goes a little bit lower than the bust, and then it cuts about halfway up. That's weird, it hits around the apex of the side, so maybe this needs to come up a little bit more. For this first round of marking, I'm using a green Sharpie, and I'm just laying down different lines, and then whichever one I like the most, I'm gonna go in later with a black Sharpie and properly mark it. And then I'm gonna let the straight line of the tape be the straight line for this piece. Black Sharpie. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna do the side bits exactly the same way, and then I'll check in with you after that. The last thing that I'm doing before I'm gonna take all of this off is I'm taking a pen that has heated wash away ink, and I'm puncturing all the way through the patterns, and I'm just marking kind of so that when I try to sew it back on, I have an idea of where everything should go. And then we peel it all off.
Do your best. Picnic 기분 feels so good. 素敵な afternoon. プラチナみんな yeah. 固めてごめす I love you いつでも smile for you. 君だけにラム Hey so 頑張らなくちゃ Compilation Compilation お揃いの T シャツ Hey 手編みのマフラーと Oh yeah ハートウォーミング目白
Of course, the first time that I top stitched these front pieces on, they were horrifically uneven, and I had to unpick one side and completely restitch it. Vinyl does not like being sewn through multiple times, so I was really pushing it, and I probably should have just cut a new piece. Okay, so last night I made a ton of progress. I got the main chest pieces attached, and then I did the collar. And y'all, I am so proud of how this thing turned out. It is not perfect by any means. There's like, oh, it's the other side. There's like a ton of messy stitching, and it has this line at the bottom from stitching this on, but you know, the collar covers it, so who cares? Now I just have the rest to put on this thing. I can't believe it's done. So first you're gonna notice that I ended up not putting anything on the shoulders here, and that is mostly due to fear of losing elasticity within the garment. And also I just found that because the white collar is here, I didn't really feel a need to put anything on the shoulders. One of the big major issues that I have with this bodysuit is that at the bottom of the zipper, it's not finished. There's just a hole. I still don't know how to properly finish the bottoms of zippers and garments that don't have a seam going all the way down. I figured out how to finish zippers and garments that don't have a seam going all the way down. For some reason, I had a really hard time searching this up. I did not know what to stick in the search bar to figure out what the problem was, but luckily, I ran across an Instagram video just by sheer luck that explains it. Please allow me to share. So when you get to the bottom of your cut where your zipper is, instead of cutting all the way down, you cut like a little triangle in the bottom. Then when you turn everything right side out, you just have this little triangle tab that you can tuck in, and you have perfectly finished edges all the way around your zipper. Phenomenal. I need to laser etch this information into my brain forever. Flipping over to the back, one of my other big major concerns is that when I'm wearing this, there's a lot of room in the back. It almost seems like it just isn't gripping the shape of my back. And it doesn't really seem like it's something that I can just take in the waist and have that solve the problem. There's like a lot of excess right here. And the only solution that I can think of in my mind is a dart, but since I've already sewn on the white piece, I don't want to put a dart through it. So I honestly think I'm just gonna suffer with it, and it is what it is. Nobody sees the back of you anyways. And then the last thing is stuff that you probably can't even see on camera, but like right here, something nicked the fabric and it ended up making a weird line in it. That's fine. So next weekend, it's going to be taking care of the wig, taking care of final like accessories and bits and bobs, and then maybe the power mesh inserts. I bought green power mesh because Beast Boy has green skin, and I'm gonna see if I can make some inserts to go from the sleeve hole to the gloves and then from the leg hole to the boots. I just think that that would make wearing this a whole lot easier. So until then, I'll see you later. Oh, the wig. This was a beautiful Amazon wig. All right, give me some 07s in the comments for this wig. It's a $50 Amazon wig, so, oop. It has done nothing to the wig. Well, that was a huge bust. All of that work, and it did nothing to the wig. That's not true. It did dye the lace, which at first I was a little apprehensive about, but I'm gonna be painting myself green, so theoretically that would have been great if the wig would have also been dyed. It also doesn't help that the only other two wigs that I have are like bright neon green. I could make this work. I just think I would have to do a lot of adjusting. For now, I think I'm probably done for the day. We'll come back to this maybe tomorrow. I ended up ordering a different wig entirely. I thought that this power mesh was gonna be ass to work with, but it really wasn't. My machine handled it great and it wasn't nearly as slippery as I thought it was gonna be. That being said, I know this may seem obvious, but I didn't know. I highly recommend using clips instead of pins for mesh fabric. Oh my goodness, it made a huge difference. I am amazed that this worked. And now I know how to make my own tights with power mesh. But yeah, I have black leggings underneath right now. I'll probably wear them when I wear the costume just because I think it's more comfortable to have like proper pants under these. The only thing is I don't have a waistband on them yet, so I'm just tucking them into the leggings. So if I ever decide to wear this to a con, I might install a proper waistband on it, but for now I'm pretty dang happy with it, and I'm just gonna get the arms done in a similar fashion. And with all of that being done, all that was left to do were some finishing touches, including a very cute set of nails, giving that like 24-inch wig a nice chop, which was painful to do, but necessary. And finally, it was time to put it all on. And if those pictures weren't quite enough for you, I may or may not have a video coming out, hopefully next week, entirely revolving around this costume. Overall, I am so happy with how this costume came together. The things that I predicted were going to be huge problems were not nearly as big of a problem. In fact, a lot of it worked out way better than I thought it would. I'm also just proud of myself for consistently working on this and not letting the difficulties get me down, because in the past, that has been a huge problem for me. So hooray for that. Oh, the sun's finally coming out. If you have any questions or any thoughts about how I did anything, do leave them in the comments down below. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video, which I am very, very, very excited about. Bye.
輝くためには必要なものがある
On to the next project! Yeah!